What's up, everyone? It's your lady, Amy the Seventh, with another episode of Pretty Woman Speaks. This is an exciting episode. Really excited to bring this one to you all. For me, you see my shirt, dope black journalist. For those who can't see, I'm super excited to be all three of those things, to be dope, to be black, and to be a journalist. What a great day to wake up and be black, beautiful, and bold every day here in America. And I just want to say that I just came back from Birmingham from the National Association of Black Journalism Convention, which is the second largest gathering of people of conventions right here in America. And your girl has been a part of almost every one of them since 2017. This year we were in Birmingham, lock and loaded. And let me tell you all, there was so much that I learned from Birmingham, so many great people that I met. And I'm just really excited to just give y'all the rundown, the parlay, as we say it from my neck of the woods, of what all went down. Let me tell you also, what makes August 7th another beautiful day? Today also marks 8 years since I graduated twice from the illustrious Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, 1887. What? Let me tell you that when what really stands out to me was my professor, my microeconomics professor. And by the way, I took his course and I should have, I took his course, and let me tell you the value of reading, because I did not read. I said, oh, it's an economics course, and I joined, but it ended up being a microeconomics course. And let me tell you, it was one of the most fulfilling courses I've ever taken at Florida A&M, because it really got to the meat of the matter when it comes to economy, right? Economizing. And I remember my professor, Dr. Rudolph Daniel, shout out to him, a real funny guy. And he'll let you know, he'll put on his Alpha Sigma, his alpha jersey from the 60s, and baby, it fit just like yesterday. Okay, he was fit and friendly, okay, as they say. And what really stood out to me today, thinking about him, was that he told me that being on Florida FAMU's campus was a utopia. And of course, at that time, I really shunned it, because I was like, what does he know he's talking about? He's been out of school 40 years. But let me tell you, us young people need to do better with really opening our mind and our ears to what our elders tell us, and really embrace what it is that they say to us, because we miss out on so many things when we think we know everything, right? Because hearing comes by faith comes by hearing alone, right? And to have faith, you need to hear. And not only do you need to hear, you need to listen. And I really didn't take to heart what my professor was saying when he said that this was a utopia, because I wanted to get the hell off campus. I was so ready to graduate. I was a transfer student. I mean, so many things were just going wrong. I ended up having to walk the field twice for 1 degree, and I never graduated, right? So that's a testament to my perseverance. My whole life has been nothing about perseverance, seeing things through all the trials that I've been through, and seeing it through with a smile, right? Because I'm going to smile through everything that's given to me, because I'm going to bat 1,000 every day, all day. And today was all last week was a week of me batting 1,000. And I just want to say that he was right, that Florida A&M was a utopia, that I was not going to run across another large group of educated black people that were like-minded and like direction. He was right, because it took me literally until around this time, right? Because I'm 8 years out of graduate school, right? Undergraduate school. And he was right. But let me tell you what he didn't know about, what he didn't include, right? Was NABJ, as I said, the National Association of Black Journalism, the second largest convention, second largest gathering, and probably the largest gathering of educated black folks right here in America. And your girl was a part of it. And let me tell you, this convention was just so fulfilling, because not only did I meet wonderful beautiful, exciting faces right there in the historical city of Birmingham, Alabama. But I also got enriched with culture and history and really learned a lot of things that I didn't even know. And let me tell you, America really has a way of distorting and hiding things that makes you think that like the civil rights movement was long ago when it really wasn't. While I was there, I took a tour of the 16th Street Baptist Church. And if y'all not familiar, that was where the bombing of four little girls right there in the center of downtown Birmingham, and it was just so surreal to take a tour of that church and to learn about that bombing that happened September 15, 1963 at 10:22 a.m. Four little girls were murdered essentially, and I'm going to speak their names right because I still say their names. 14-year-olds, there were three 14-year-olds, Addie Mae Collins, Denise McNair, and Carol Robinson, and one 11-year-old, Cynthia Wesley. And I had the pleasure of meeting the sibling of Addie Mae Collins, and her name is Sarah Collins Rudolph, and she is still alive and partially blind. She is considered, she has a book out right now that she personally signed for me. I'm so honored. And it's called The Fifth, right? The Fifth um Black girl in the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church. And she was just so surreal when she talked about the bombing that happened. And I believe she was 12 years old at the time. She was the only survivor of that bombing. It was such a tragedy for her and her family because not only did her family lose her sister, her oldest sister, Addie Mae Collins, but they almost lost her. She talked about how she had about 16 pieces of shard glass in her eyes. Let me see if I could pull up the picture because you guys need to really see this of what happened to Sarah Collins Rudolph. And oh my goodness, let me show you the images of Sarah Collins Rudolph. Here she is as a little girl right here. This is a picture of her when she went to the hospital. She had to have surgery because there were so many shards of glass. And where she was located, right, where the little girls were located, they were killed. They were right up front, but Sarah was actually in the bathroom at the time, and that may have been what spared her life, right? Shout out to God placing you in positions, right, where you're not essentially, like unscathed, but you're protected enough to tell the story, right, to tell the glory of God. And she talks about how it took her almost to her mid 40s to talk about the tragedy, right? Because back then there were no counseling for Black people that went through traumatic experience, and it was just so surreal to hear her talk about it, and to hear her go talk about those things. And what really stands out to me is I really didn't catch all of her interview. Shout out to the NBC Universal Academy that brought her, and Janice Kelsey, who was also friends of Cynthia, one of the 14-year-olds that was also killed during the bombings. Janice Kelsey, she was also there. I also got an autographed book of her, and she also talks about being a child protester, and she was part of, let me make sure I have that right because there's just so much information and I want to make sure that I'm telling you all the right information. But Janice Kelsey was also a part of the, let me make sure I have that right. She's also part of the child protesters. Let me make sure I have that right of what protester that she was a part of. So give me one moment to make sure I have that right. Yes, so she was part of the Children's Crusade, May 2nd of 1963, right? So just a few months apart from her actual best friend, Cynthia, being killed in the bombing in being killed in that bombing in September of 1963. I mean, there was so much that was happening in Birmingham that I just really didn't know what's going on because again, this is not taught in everyday American school system. And what really stands out to me was that I was talking to my mother that I was like, wow, I really thought that the civil rights movement was so far removed from me as a child. I was born in 1991. And the way that it was expressed to me in the history books, you would think that it was just so long ago. But when I really think about it, the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church was only 28 years before I was born. And when I really put it into closer context, my grandmother was the same age, 14, of 3 out of 4 girls that was killed in the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. So when I really, put it into context, I'm really not that far removed from civil rights movement. And it's very important that you keep this history alive. I know that Janice Kelsey, I'm actually looking right now for the soundbite of Janice Kelsey when she talked about keeping your history alive and the importance of making sure that your people don't die in vain, right? Because it's so easy to scoff at things that happen in the yesteryear. And when you scoff at things that happen at the yesteryear, you tend to lose out on the beauty of those things. So let me actually go to a soundbite from Janice Kelsey where she talks about the importance of keeping the history alive.
To remove the history from the curriculum, from grade school all the way to higher ed. They're monitoring what things you can learn, what you can study. And you are a citizen of the United States. You have a right to fight for what you want taught in your schools. So don't be silent.
Right. And what really sticks out to me is that she talks about don't be silent, do something about it. And it's just too often, more than not, that so many of our greats, so many of the people that allow us to now sit in the bus right next to white folks, dine in on restaurants next to white folks, that a lot of those things are oftentimes we take for granted, right? The word freedom we take for granted because essentially we were born what they would call free. And there's still so many things that us as a nation need to fight for so that everyone can have a taste of freedom and have the equal rights of knowing the American dream right here in this country. And what really also sticks out to me was that we are now, where I was in Birmingham, Alabama, there was a historic moment that happened, and what some people are calling another satisfying racial moment, where a black security guard, I don't know if y'all saw the video, but in Montgomery, Alabama, he was asking a white man, a boat full of boaters, to take his boat from where it was posted, and instead of you know, the man adhering to being a law-abiding citizen, he took his fist and swung at the black man, and then instead of a one-on-one fight, it became a jumping frenzy. And then next thing you know, black folks from all over the dock came in assistance of the black security guard. I mean, I'm just now finding out there was a 16-year-old, if you saw in the video, that swam across the water to help join into the fight. His name is Aaron Rudolph, and actually there's been donations pouring in for the 16-year-old for his admirability to jump in and fight for something that he felt needed to stand up for, right? Something that also Janice Kelsey did back in the 60s, right? She was also arrested, right, for standing up for her rights as a child. I think she was in elementary when she came out and protested, and they arrested her as well. And so, it is really profound to me that where it happened in Montgomery, which is about 2 hours away from Birmingham, that there was another historic moment that was taking place where essentially, and I might be not politically correct for saying that, but it's now coming to a time where the greater majority of those who rule this nation will now understand that this group of Black folks are not going to take an ass beating like my ancestors did in the 60s, right? We are not the same essentially when it comes to allowing ourselves to get beat on in just any kind of way. And so it's a so surreal moment to see us standing in solidarity against one Black person being attacked by a group of white folks, right? Because we seen this time and time again. And now that social media is doing its job, we're learning that Chris Saint, the one who threw the first punch that started a brawl, he actually owns a mini market in Selma called the Vesser Mini Mark. And right now across social media, there is a boycott that's being called to reckon, essentially to shut him down, because right, we're not standing for our dollars to be patronized in areas that will commit such heinous acts against us, against any group of people, right? Because I stand for no group of people to be attacked by hatred, right? And we know that hatred is a silent ingrained here in America, right? Not of our politicians, not even our president would like to admit that racism and hatred is actually the fabric of America, because when these acts happen time and time again, you would see them get on the mic and say, this is not America, this is not us, but this is us. And I believe that when we get to a point of time where we recognize that this is us, that we can actually do the work to fix, right, to mitigate, right, to correct those things that happen to us. And essentially, um what was happening is welcome reconciliation, like what John Pick did in Wales. A fun story at the 16th Street Baptist Church where I learned was that a white man put together what would be called a GoFundMe back now, but back then he organized the ability to create a stained glass so that the 150-year-old church could now have a stained glass of a Black Jesus. So let me show you all of the Black Jesus that's now on the wall at the 16th Street Baptist Church. It's actually a really bad view, but from this angle. But up until then, we know that the only time that you could have um, any look alike of Jesus on the wall was that of a white Jesus. So it's really awesome to see that reconciliation and that solidarity of Blacks and whites coming together for a cause that sticks together, because essentially the church still has that white Jesus on the wall, and it still has some of the well, really pretty much all of it, but the light fixtures of how the church looked from 150 years ago, from the pews to the organ to what you see to the stained glass, is still that of the church from 150 years ago. But really where I'm getting at with standing in solidarity and not shopping where you're not wanted was that professor and author Dr. Marcus Collins. I listened to him, and he's worked with the likes of, as a digital marketer, with the likes of Beyonce, Adidas, Nike. I mean, he's done major campaigns and tugging at the heartstrings of people. But also there was a question that this one journalist asked about with the rollback of affirmative action and DEI and all of those things. What can we as a group of people do to help mitigate those laws that are being rolled back? And this is what he had to say when it comes to a call for action.
Value the output of someone else. And the paradox of this is that the cultural production of the Black community is the most valuable product in the world, definitely in this country. I would arguably say that Black culture, the Black cultural production is American culture. Because communities that are marginalized, communities that are oppressed by the hegemony, by nature, are more creative and more innovative. More innovation happens from these communities because we have less.
And not to cut him off, but what really sticks out to me was when you all have to visit the Birmingham Civil Rights Museum. It's right across the street from the 16th Street Baptist Church. But when you look at the when you look at the church, excuse me, when you go inside the museum, they actually have replicas of the black classroom and the white classroom. Now, the all white classroom in 1953, it's brightly lit. Let me show you all just the difference between the black and white classrooms in 1953. We have the black classroom, essentially you see it. That's how our classrooms look back in 1963. I mean, excuse me, 1953. And then in 1953, also a white classroom. You just see the difference in how well lit it is, how great of up-to-date products that they have that were top of the state of the art back then. And it was really so surreal because even in the state of lack, just the amount of greatness that comes out of state of lack. You know, there's a saying that ghetto is just creativity undiscovered, ungentrified. And I can't tell you, look, let me tell you, as a kid, Kool-Aid pickles, nobody could have told me that Kool-Aid pickles was $1 million industry, right? We were doing that just there out there in the hood, but to know that we could have took the things that we pioneered in our black neighborhoods and made money off of it is just so surreal to let me know that lets us know that there is greatness in the lack of resources that we have. There's so many times as a black journalist that there's a saying there that I take chicken shit and make chicken salad, right? And that's what we do as black folks out here. We take chicken shit and make chicken salad time and time again. Here's some awesome students that's come out of those time periods of facing inequality, and y'all should look them up when y'all get a chance. And some of those people are Oscar Adams, Anna Jean Easley, Fred Gray. Oh, and I had an opportunity of meeting Fred Gray, who is now an attorney. He served as an attorney for Dr. Martin Luther King in Rosa Parks. He also helped facilitate the Montgomery bus boycott as well. He's an awesome man to look up, and he's still living. In fact, he's probably one of the only known person still living from the Montgomery bus boycott. And get this, he's still in practice, so y'all should check him out as well. But we all know about my girl Angela Davis, and some more people that we probably don't know about. Arlam Carr, oh, Condoleezza Rice, John Lewis. So when you go through the museum, there's a lot of people that they name, like I said, that I didn't even know about. And it's just really awesome to have these people that you can learn about that are alive and were alive during our time period. And so let me go back to the sound bites of what Dr. Marcus Collins was talking about. So give me 1 second.
And more innovative. More innovation happens from these communities because we have less. And therefore, we are conditioned to rework, to refashion. Those things that we rework and refashion become adopted by the hegemony, by the populace, and then they rework it again to take ownership from us. And this is what we know as cultural appropriation. You take cultural markers. You take the cultural markers of a group of people and give it new meaning. And this has been a boot on our neck for forever since we stepped foot into this country. It's almost to the degree that we won't value our own production until someone else outside of our community values it. And again, it's hard to place blame because when those are the frames by which we are educated, the frames by which we are interpolated, the frames by which we are conditioned to navigate what we call society here in the country, and it's deeply ingrained in us.
Deeply ingrained in us. He mentioned talking about how we don't value and validate ourselves until someone on the outside validate us. And let me tell you, I mentioned earlier about my professor, Dr. Rudolph Daniels, and he talked about being a Black microeconomist. It wasn't until he got his doctorate degree that white folks, and this is his words, white folks paid him some attention, because he was not valued until he had a piece of paper that validated him. And this is too much. This is often not, more times than not, something that reoccurs in the Black community, where we are not validated. We don't even validate ourselves until someone on the outside validates us. So it does need to come to a point, right? Like they did in Montgomery at the dock, where we all jump in, all hands on deck. I'm not saying advocate for violence. What I'm saying is that when we see one that's in need of help, we all jump in and we help, right? We help one another. We make sure we pull enemies off of one another so that we can stand up and continue to fight for ourselves. But let me tell you, Birmingham, definitely. Oh, and before I forget, check out Dr. Marcus Collins' book, For the Culture. Definitely, he said it's a cheat code for those who want to adapt the culture in a way that's still prolific, right? Because we are on the move, and it's time to stay on the move and to evolve and to drive purpose, right? Because this is where we are, right? Where we're done being consumers, right? And this is something that I forgot the man's name, but he talks about how we've lost our culture.
Well, thank you, Marcus, for sharing that. Before we get into the Q&A, I just want to segue into it by showcasing that you have just channeled centuries of leadership that come from our culture. And one of the things I think it underlines, and I need your support on this one, is that we've lost our cultural memory. We've lost our independent production capacity. We've become consumers, not communicators. We've become reactionary, not above the frame. And that is, we lost independent control of our news, our narrative, and our own products. While at the same time that everything in America has an African influence. Our food, our pharmaceutical system, our money system. If you look on the dollar bill now, it is Egyptian. It is totally out of command. There'd be symbol on there. But we're not aware of it. We don't have that memory.
We don't have the memory. And back to Janice Kelsey, I didn't get a chance to catch her recording, but she said it was up to us to keep our history alive, right? Because when you see what's going on in Florida, you see all across this nation, there is a rollback. It seems like a unison determination, right, to kill the overall learning opportunity for us to know ourselves. And it's, if you have an ancestor that's still living, some books that are out there you need to pick them up, pick up the phone, pick up those books, and channel your ancestors, learn the history, right? Because we know that there is a war out there for us, for people of color, right, to lose who we are, to forget who we are, right? Because there is history, there is empowerment in knowing who you are. Because if you know your history, you're less likely to repeat it, right? Because it is time for us to move forward. It is time for us to become another element of hip hop. That's what Dougie Fresh was calling. Got a chance to meet my boy Dougie Fresh. He was awesome. He had a lot of good speeches. He talked about how he wished he had an opportunity to go to an HBCU, but his career took off early. And look, I don't know if I would have traded a vibrant career at 17 to go to an HBCU, but I would never know, right? Because I am still trying to take off. I am on the landing. I'm on the strip, on the tarmac, ready to take off. That's where I am, right? I may the ancestors be the wind against my back, right? Because I am a dope Black journalist ready for takeoff. And let me tell you, it was so awesome meeting these people like my boy Dougie Fresh. He was awesome. Let me show you the picture. Meeting my boy Dougie Fresh right here. Shout out to Scripps Network for bringing him in, for channeling him to us. Let me show you. Let me make sure that y'all hear some of his. I can't do it, but my boy Dougie can do it, and he definitely did it. Let me go back to it because I just had it, but in my excitement, it wasn't there. So let me make sure that I find it. Might be this one right. Nope. Okay, he called himself and is the fifth element of hip hop, and he said to us in just his words that I'm paraphrasing that you have the opportunity to be the fifth element of anything that you want to be, right? You can create your own lane. Don't let these people not make you feel like you can create your own lane, right? And we definitely came through with, let me make sure y'all can hear the inspiration of what he did. And do. And not only do we have the spirit and soul of HBCU, but we have the spirit and soul of our ancestors, right? And I'm going to call out some of them because I didn't know some of them. We have Reverend Fred L. Shuttlesworth, who is a freedom fighter. He even got stabbed in the hip. He and his wife both got stabbed. Their houses got bombed, but he kept that in. In fact, he got the Presidential Medal of Honor back. I believe President Clinton gave it back to him in 2002, but he ended up dying in 2011. Let me tell you, there's so many of our ancestors still alive that we don't even know about. But some of them that were alive during my time period that I'm just learning about it. Jose Hudson was a sharecropper and communist who organized the Birmingham workers in mines and mills and helped establish the first unions during the Southern organizing. He was born in 1898 and didn't die until 1988. Check out this beautiful ancestor right there, right? That's one right there that we need to check out. One person that I didn't even know about, John T. Fess Whaley, born in 1896, didn't die till 1972. He shaped a generation of jazz musicians from the 30s through the 50s. He was the music master until he retired until 1962. Look at that suave brother right there. I mean, the man is just suave. I'll be glad when our men go back to dressing just like they did in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, right? I'm looking forward to that opportunity. More of our ancestors that I didn't know about. James Lawson was the guiding spirit of the student sit-in movement. He was born in 1922, and guess what? He is still here, right? The beauty of knowing where your ancestors is, right? I talked about the Montgomery bus boycott, but also the Freedom Riders, right? That bombing, one of the most historic bombings happened back in May, I believe in 1968, but don't quote me on that. There's so many bombings that happened in Birmingham that they became known as Birmingham, right? Essentially stuff out here that I didn't even know about. So what I want to have is a call to action that us as people of color, we stand together, right? We form a solidarity. We link with brothers and sisters that not only look like us, but look like us in our heart, right? Because everybody that doesn't have our skin color, does not mean that they're not our brothers and sisters, right? It's time for that we judge people by their hearts, right? Who is on the right or wrong side of history, right? That's where we are today. So make sure that you all find your utopia, you find your tribe, and you become your own element of hip hop, right? Because we are the movement. We all can be dope black journalists out here. We all can be dope. We all can be black. And this is America. And this what makes the beauty in America, right? When we find ourselves and we find our God. And that's funny that I was bringing that I'm on the subject of God because Sarah Collins Rudolph, she talks about finding God and putting down the guns, and this is what she has to say.
To know that these years didn't die in vain. When they was marching, they passed the civil rights bill, and it's time for them to know that they was a lot of people that was killed during that time. And it's also, I would like to say this is not in the question, but it's time for our young people to put the guns away. And start killing one another. Because the ones that we have now, people died for them. And they need to start putting their guns down, start going to church, and learn about God. Because it started that I see a lot of young people are still on the streets. They're not in church on Sunday. And I really believe that they learn how to love and care for each other and stop killing each other. You know, back then we would fight, but we didn't fight. We didn't take out any guns to kill anyone. We had our little fights, and next minute we was talking and having fun again. But now our young people, they want to get rid of each other, and that's not right. Put the guns down and start loving each other.
I mean, just so thought provoking, insightful from our elders. She said a number of things that our ancestors, our elders didn't die in vain. And to learn your God, right? Because your God does not, as she said, she mentioned going to church, but your God does not have to be, excuse me, within those confines of church. I know nowadays it's really hard to find a church that feels your spirit, that feeds your spirit. But what you can do is when she said, find your God, right? Their God, your God is always within you, right? Because there's a scripture that says, greater is he within me than he is in the world, right? So find what that looks like for you, right? What is your spirit saying to you? Are you in tuned? Are you quiet enough to hear what your God has to say to you, right? Where are you in that? And these are beautiful things that you can tap into if you listen. And a few things that she left off us was put the guns down, right? Pick up your heart, pick up your pens, pick up your spirit, right? And love on your brothers and sister, right? Because at the end of the day, without us, it's just us, and without us there is no just us, right? So that's where we are. This is another episode of Pretty Woman Speaks with your lady, Amy the Seventh. Make sure you tune in every Monday at 7 p.m. on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. I'll be here each and every week with your wrap up of another interview. And I'm just super excited to bring y'all this. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, and check me out on Instagram and Facebook at Amy the Seventh. Y'all, peace and love, love and peace. Love yourself and make sure you grease the scalp too, right? Because your scalp need love too, y'all. Holla.